Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Skyblock News. I'm your host Derailious, and today we're going to be going over Skyblock Update 0.23.3, and fellas, it looks to be a damn good one. Before we begin, I just want to say, please make sure to like and subscribe down below as it really helps out the channel a lot, and use code RAIL on the Hypixel store for 5% off your order. Fellas, the support has been crazy recently. It really does mean a ton. Without any further ado though, let's get started. Alright, so launching right into the changes here today, we have a lot of stuff to cover on the Alpha Network, a lot of improvements to content in the Foraging update, as well as an improved mob typing system. The first thing is, many of the items that were in the Foraging update are now added to the museum. This includes most of the hunting tools, things like that, scaffolding, the tormentor, the fishing nets, the snorkeling armor, pretty much anything that you can imagine from the Foraging update, and even some of the other stuff, like for example the stuff from Kuudra. Those have all been added to the museum, so now you can get a lot more Skyblock XP from that. Another thing that they've added is 135 new AP through some new Foraging related achievements. They've also renamed the Dragon's Egg to the Golden Dragon's Egg, and it now gives 15 AP instead of 10. And you can see those new achievements right here. Notably, donate fishes, tune the beacon on Galatea, achieve a certain hunting level, siphon 50 attributes, fuse into attributes, etc. Getting into the meat of the changes, the first change is that they've added 3 new hidden brackets to Agatha's contest with even better rewards. And now you actually need quite a few more points. I think it's 5,000 for Legendary. So I imagine that these new tiers are going to give you a way higher chance of getting the Starland prizes, and probably a lot more XP and Forest Whispers, which I think is totally fine. Melody changes. You now only need to get 90% perfection on Melody songs for the maximum Skyblock XP and Intel bonus. By extension, Melody's hair now only requires 90% perfection on all non-personal Harp songs to earn. Thank God. This has been needed for literal years. I wish this happened sooner. There is a new Galatea sea creature called the Bogged. It drops the mangrove logs and the sea loomies. It is unlocked at Fishing 5, and the Sea Archer shard is now the Bogged shard, and you get it from Bogged. That's the one that gives you sea creature chance, by the way. They've also renamed the attribute from Monster Bait to Creature Fisher. We also have a couple new attributes in the game. First, we have Chop. Its effect is basically a bonus chance to chop 1 extra log on top of the ones that you've swept. You obtain it as a 0.15% drop from Fig Tree Gifts, and a 0.25% drop from Mangrove Tree Gifts. There's also Bayou Biter, which gives you up to 2.5 double hook chance while in the Backwater Bayou. This one you get from a Titanoboa. So Kuudra now gives 1, 1, 1, 1.25, and 1.5 Kraken shards for tier 1 through 5, so that's a guaranteed chance and then a chance for a bonus one. Instead, the Demon Fusion now outputs 2 shards instead of 1, that's pretty good as well, and in Master Mode 7, an Apex or Power Dragon shard is now guaranteed to appear in Emerald chests and higher. That is very good. It's also a bonus reward, so it won't affect your other loot. They've improved a lot of stuff here, I will say, in terms of the fusion. As you can see, like Warty Bug is just better flatly. Crop Beetle is also better. Many of these will require way less grinding, which is super nice to see. They've also added some emblems for reaching Agatha level 5, Heart of the Forest 5, and Heart of the Forest 7, and Heart of the Forest XP rewards are now converted to Forest Whispers once the Heart of the Forest is maxed. They've added Flex Bones to the Bazaar, hallelujah. They've also doubled the Foraging Fortune given by Citrines, which is great. There are some booster changes. Now they are sold on the Bazaar, and they are also stackable, which is very nice. However, keep in mind the old ones will not stack. They can also be salvaged for Forest Essence and sold for 25k coins apiece. Very, very nice. They've reduced the Park Armor's rarity to Common, they've reduced the Canopy Armor's rarity to Uncommon, and the Fig Armor now uses Canopy Armor in its crafting recipes. Makes a lot of sense. The Abysmal Lasso is also crafted with 5 Sea Loomies now, pretty nice, and the Vine Grip Lasso now uses the Abysmal one in its recipe. Kiara will now give you her Abaphone contact if you give her a Chameleon Shard, that's not bad, and you'll also be able to get an additional shard each day if you have her contact, which is very nice to see. Only Galatea sea creatures can now be fished up on Galatea, which makes sense. There's a few scaffolding improvements. They've added new rabbit residents to Galatea. They've also made some changes to the stretching sticks. As you can see, their recipe is now a little bit different overall. They've added Emperor Skulls to the crafting recipe of Abyssal Armor, which I guess kind of makes sense. And they've just made a bunch of improvements to things like Fig Tree Gifts and Mangrove Tree Gifts, and also Trevor the Trapper. A lot of the stuff here is technically nerfs, but like many of these things were frankly too common beforehand. I don't think that this is really a problem. Trevor the Trapper giving hunting XP for hunts is pretty funny, I will say. You will also no longer get hunting XP for loot sharing, so that's a big one you have to keep in mind. Snorkeling shoes now come with Depth Strider 3 when purchased. They've halved the amount of double hook chance given by the Crimson Hook attribute, which I don't know why, I felt like it was kind of reasonable. They buffed the Hunter's Pressure attribute. It now scales from 5 to 50%, which is very nice to see. The Reborn or Prince attribute now sends a chat message when it procs, which is super nice. And you can also shift right-click shards in your hunting box to convert all of that shard into an item. That is a great change. Axolotls now lock on to the player that alerted them. Thank the Lord, they are way easier to collect now. And the Phantoms no longer deal any damage, and also they don't dive super far away when you're lassoing them. Very, very nice. Super happy about that. Salamanders are now fused into by using a Newt shard and any water shard. That's also pretty great. Chameleons now only require 1 shard to use. Just really, can we just talk for a minute? These changes are just so good. I don't think I've disagreed with like anything I've seen so far here. I think everything here, other than maybe like the double hook chance one for Jawbus, everything here is great. Like, can we just... Really good stuff here, by the way. They've buffed the amount of Foraging XP and Skyblock XP earned from Swoops milestones. Fine, whatever. Shulker bullets now ignore block collisions for the first few seconds after being fired. They also home in slightly now. That's very nice. Stealth 1 books are now 10 times as rare from Chill Blades and Chill Shots. Okay, that's reasonable. Hina's Chapters task that required you to get 100 shards now only requires you to get 25. Thank the Lord. They have Warp Murk and Warp Lock as aliases of Warp Murkwater, which is good. All shards now actually have the word shard in their name, rather than just being the name of the mob. So Seagull is now Seagull Shard, which makes a lot of sense. That kind of seemed like it was a pet initially when I first saw it on the Foraging update, and that makes a lot more logical sense now. There's also a few other things here that are pretty important, notably like Ryan can detect the logs obtained from the personal compactor, and Bazaar for the campfire quest line. You can click on the attribute fusion and transfer chat messages to open your hunting box. Smaller stuff here, and also a lot of bug fixes, as you can see. I'm not going to read every single one of them. I've read enough today, but you can pause the screen and look at everything here. I think a lot of these are probably fairly good. Notably, Shell attribute not giving knockback immunity for certain mobs. That's a good one. Alright, mob types. This one's an interesting one. So currently, it's very difficult for players to tell what mob-specific enhancements work on certain mobs, right? Like if you have Smite, it might be kind of hard to tell in Skyblock. If you have Ender Slayer, same deal. So the idea here is that they're creating mob types, which is a system that is supposed to be less confusing. So every single mob in the game, seemingly, will have a symbol next to its name. And these symbols will correspond to the different mob types in the game, as you can see. So here are all of them, and certain ones, obviously, they don't have anything associated with them yet, but you can now discern them all. There's also a new building over in the Spider's Den, which we will go to in a moment, that is relevant for this. So as you can see over in the Spider's Den, here's the new building. You may have noticed this one is the exact same as a building that was on Alpha like 9 or 10 months ago at this point, but now here it is, in-game. And inside this building, there are 2 NPCs. Michael, who kind of just talks about what the actual mob types are, and Ike, who you're actually going to speak to 99% of the time because he has the menu which shows you all of the types. This is pretty cool. It's a great feature in my opinion. This is going to be very easy to understand. You also get Skyblock XP for each one of these you collect, and yes, as you can see, because I have them all done, you are able to get these retroactively, at least on the alpha. It seems to take from your bestiary menu, which makes a lot of sense, so you won't need to go out and kill a mob of each type. It's very, very cool. I also think you get some combat XP, so it's going to be half-decent combat XP for an early game player, which is really, really great. I love this system. I think it's super great. Love it a lot. And also, as you can see, the upstairs area has an enchantment table for the 4 people interested in that. So we also have some item and enchantment changes to go over. They're not too crazy. Most of the changes here are just related to making things actually make sense. So like the End Sword now deals bonus damage to Ender mobs, undead for undead, so on and so forth. You get the picture. Pretty much everything has just been changed to match with their specific mob type, which will be used in the game from now on. They've also improved many references to specific types of mobs throughout the game. That's pretty good. Also, the bestiary has been updated, which is probably how they got the info as to which mobs you've killed in the first place. Moving right along, we have some miscellaneous changes here. Notably, all fortune stats are now disabled on private islands. You can now add the Hellstorm wand to the museum. Golden Dragon's perk and Hound's perk no longer work on private islands. Unlucky. Diamond the Fish are now soulbound and are sold in Odger's Lost Reward Shop for 10 million coins for people who want to get those again. They renamed Thunder Shards to Thunder Fragments. That makes sense. You can no longer fish in water on the Crimson Isle. Rest in peace. Also, they hid vanilla item attributes for icons in the stats breakdown menu. They've also done some more minor stuff, like Stew the Fish is now more common, Flick the Fish is now an outstanding treasure catch, and they've also done some regular bug fixes. But overall, a very, very solid update. Wrapping up here, what a monstrous cook on this update. I've got to say, from top to bottom, it looks good overall. I think many of the changes are very much needed, although I do wish we still had the double hook chance on the Crimson Isle. Aside from that, though, things look very, very solid. Excited for this release. Good for early game players, and good for people who are just struggling in certain parts of the game overall. I think a lot of these changes to the Foraging update are super solid. Hopefully we see a lot less complaints about things like attributes, and hopefully this slime doesn't come into frame. At the end of the day, though, my name's Derailious. Thank you so much for watching this video till the end, and look to the future, fellas. I'll see you then.